All right, welcome everyone to quarter three of the quarterly dairy legal webinar. Our focus topic is risk management and income and revenue protection. My name is Audrey Thompson, and I'm a staff attorney here at the Penn State Center for Agricultural Shale Law. We'd first like to thank our partner, the National Agricultural Law Center, for sponsoring this webinar. The National Agricultural Law Center at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture serves as the nation's leading source of agricultural and food law research and information. And this material is provided as part of that partnership and is based upon work supported by the National Agricultural Library, Agricultural Research Service, U.S. Department of Agriculture. This webinar is the 13th in our Dairy Quarterly Legal Webinar series. Previous webinars have included discussions of international dairy trade, the 2023 Farm Bill, labeling standards, and many, many more. Those are all available on our Quarterly Dairy Legal landing page on our website, and I believe we'll have a link for that in the chat. I'll also mention our Dairy and Dairy Products Law Virtual Resource Room and our Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board Issue Tracker are available on our website, and there are links for those pages as well in the chat coming up, and you can access the PowerPoint and all of the materials for this webinar on our events page. There'll be a link for that coming up in the chat as well. So lots of things coming up in the chat here. And I think that's all. So, all right, I will turn this webinar over to Chloe Marie, our research specialist, who will present a roundup of this quarter's dairy legal developments. Chloe, the screen's all yours.
Thank you, Audrey. All right, so today we will discuss some key developments in dairy industry from July to September 2023, including market insights, regulatory amendments, policy decisions, and research initiatives. And Brooke may join us and share his insight as we explore some of these developments. All right, so let's begin with our first item. So on July 13, 2023, the U.S. Department of Agriculture Economic Research Service released its annual U.S. dairy sector econometric model. So this model helps the USDA Dairy Interagency Commodity Estimates Committee forecast U.S. milk and dairy product supply, demand, and prices over the next decade. So the model is used to support the USDA Agricultural Projections Report, which is published annually. And it also analyzes market conditions and evaluates the impact of federal policies on the dairy sector. So this model is continually updated to reflect changes in the dairy sector, and it has revealed that milk supply remains relatively resistant to price fluctuations. In other words, dairy producers do not significantly alter their milk production in response to shifts in milk prices. And you'll see on this slide that I have included a direct link to the USDA Agricultural Projections to 2032, which was published earlier this year in February. All right, so on July 18, 2023, the U.S. Department of Agriculture proposed changes to the Transportation Credit Balancing Fund rules in the Appalachian and Southeast federal milk marketing orders. So the Transportation Credit Balancing Fund is used to reimburse handlers for the cost of moving milk from outside the marketing area to meet the demand of Class 1 milk. And the proposed changes would update the mileage rate calculation, adjust the amount of mandatory and discretionary payments, revise the non-reimbursed mileage factor, and increase the maximum assessment rate for Class 1 milk. And the USDA also proposed to allow for distributing plant delivery credits in the Appalachian, Florida, and Southeast federal milk marketing orders. So distributing plant delivery credits, they provide transportation assistance to handlers and cooperatives that source milk year-round for the region. So the amount of the credit is generally determined by location and delivery criteria, and the provisions would include safeguards to prevent excess assessment collections and unwarranted milk movements for the purpose of receiving a DPDC payment. So the proposed provisions would apply equally to both large and small handlers and cooperatives in all three marketing areas. So this regulation changes all the results of a petition, and administrative hearing process initiated by the Dairy Cooperative Marketing Association, which is a coalition of dairy producer cooperatives that includes the Dairy Farmers of America, Lenco Penland Milk Producers, and Maryland, Virginia Milk Producers Association. So the coalition collectively markets approximately 80% of the milk pulled in the three Southeastern marketing orders and processes, and distributes a substantial percentage of the region's Class 1 fluid milk products through cooperative-owned plants. And I believe, Brooke, you want to add something about that?
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. I just wanted to add that for those people who might have attended our last quarterly dairy webinar, we did an entire focus section on amending federal milk marketing orders, which is, of course, relevant because there's a big proceeding going on right now that we'll talk about here. But this is another example of an amendment that was pursued through a petition, as we explained on our last webinar, and then ultimately the outcome, the decision from that hearing process is then incorporated into a proposed rule and published as a proposed rule. So here you see the result of the final step in an amendment process. And these are very rare. I don't know if there has been an amendment petition that has been successful and has resulted in a change in regulation in quite a number of years. But this is an example of seeing the tail end of one that we sort of went through in great detail last time on this webinar series. So just wanted to bring that up for people, and so you could put this in context, that this is not USDA's doing, so to speak. The contents of this proposed rule change were petitioned from, or was a result of a petition filed by producers. So back to you, Chloe.
Thank you, Brooke. All right, so still talking about the federal milk marketing order, on August 23, 2023, the U.S. Department of Agricultural Marketing Service held its first hearing to gather testimony and evidence on proposals to amend the pricing formula for all 11 federal milk marketing orders. So the Agricultural Marketing Service received around 40 proposals, but only considered 21 that directly impacted the uniform pricing formulas. So the proposals focused on milk composition, commodity products, Class 3 and 4 formula factors, base Class 1 skim milk price, and Class 1 and Class 2 differentials. And the hearing recessed on October 11, 2023, but will reconvene on November 27, 2023 in Zionsville, Illinois. So on September 11, 2023, yes.
Oh, sorry. Could we go back to that last one for 1 second?
Yeah,
okay. So just for everyone's understanding, you can watch these hearings on a daily basis when they're being conducted. And actually on the slide there, we have in there the link for how to watch them. It's just a Zoom broadcast. And also, there are recaps on the National Milk Producer Federation website where you can read sort of a recap of what the witnesses in the past week, their weekly recaps, had said. And so that's a resource for you if you're interested. Obviously, this is a gigantic proceeding that's going on that's of interest to everybody in the industry. Quite frankly, I don't know how the dairy industry is functioning with everybody who's in Indiana right now at these hearings, or at least was until they adjourned. So it is possible to watch these in real time. Thanks, Chloe.
Thanks, Brooke. Okay, so changing topics. On September 11, 2023, the U.S. Department of Agriculture Farm Service Agency established a milk loss program to help dairy farmers who lost milk due to natural disasters such as drought, wildfires, hurricanes, floods, etc. And the program covers milk losses in the years 2020, 2021, and 2022. And to be eligible for the program, dairy farmers must submit an application for each month they had to remove or dump milk from the market due to natural disaster. And the application must include milk marketing statements for the month before and the month of the loss, as well as a written explanation of what happened. So payments are calculated based on the average daily milk production and the fair market value of the lost milk. And the final payment is determined by multiplying the payment calculation by a payment factor. So the payment factor is 90% for affected farmers who meet the definition of beginning farmer, limited resource farmer, socially disadvantaged farmer, or veteran farmer, and 75% for all other affected farmers. So the deadline to apply for the milk loss program was October 16, so I believe yesterday. So here it is.
Although, Chloe, just to note again, there is actually an extension that was filed to October 30th for this program. That just
so
literally literally happened like a day or two ago, just in the last couple of days. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so now September 20, 2023, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced or provided an additional $5 million to support organic dairy producers through the Organic Dairy Marketing Assistance Program. So the USDA has already paid $15 million to eligible producers through the first round of payments. And the amount of assistance is based on the amount of milk the producer marketed in 2022. And this first round of payment was factored by 75%, meaning that producers received 75% of the assistance they were eligible for. And the second round of payments will provide the remaining 25% of assistance to each eligible producer. Now, very important, producers that are actively enrolled in the program will automatically receive the second payment. Now, 5 days later, the U.S. Department of Ag published its 2020 report to Congress on the Dairy Promotion and Research Program and Fluid Milk Processor Program. So the report was published after 9 Congress members called on the USDA on September 22nd to publish the 2020, 2021, and 2022 reports. So the Dairy Production Stabilization Act of 1983 requires the USDA to report annually to Congress on the dairy checkoff program's activities, funding, and effectiveness. And the Congress members wrote that the USDA's failure to submit this report since 2019 is troubling, I quote, and risks further eroding farmers' confidence in important agriculture programs. However, the 2021 and 2022 reports have not yet been published on the Agricultural Marketing Service website.
And Chloe, I was going to add here on this particular item that this has become quite a political football in Congress at this point. There was, in fact, in one of the recent attempts to put together a continuing resolution and or a budget appropriation bill of some kind, there were amendments floated to essentially discontinue all promotion programs that were based upon and research programs based upon a checkoff, and this is just one of them. Now that amendment was denied, but this entire sort of attack on promotion and resource programs, the checkoff programs, is very, very hot right now. And this particular is really starting to gain some traction with certain parts of Congress based upon a number of factors, which you could probably anticipate. This kind of congressional prodding, let's just continue for quite a while. Thanks.
Thank you, Brooke. And our last item from the USDA. So on September 29, the department announced that the August milk margin triggered the 8th consecutive payment for dairy producers who obtained dairy margin coverage for the 2023 program year. So this means that the margin fell below the level that was set for the program in August. And according to the announcement, during August, dairy producers made an average profit of $6.46 per hundredweight of milk after paying for feed. And the USDA is also expected to pay out $120 million in dairy margin coverage payments to dairy producers in the month of August. So on August 2023, the US EPA and Hershey company committed $2 million to support local dairy farmers in Pennsylvania. The Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay and Land Lakes will use the funds to encourage the adoption of sustainable farming practices among dairy farmers in Land Lakes Eastern Region Milkshed. And the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation will allocate the funds. So now in terms of regional dairy actions, the California Department of Food and Agriculture accepted pre-proposal for the new 2023 Livestock Entering Methane Emission Reduction Research Program until August 7, 2023. The program will award $10 million in competitive grants to universities, nonprofit research organizations, and California Native American tribes to test ways to reduce methane emissions from cows and other livestock. And finally, on May 15, 2023, Professors Zeye Zan and David Abler from the Penn State University College of Agricultural Sciences released a study focusing on dairy pricing policies, production, and water quality in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So the study evaluates the economic and water quality impacts of a proposed federal milk marketing order pricing change that was requested by dairy producer cooperatives in 2020. So just to provide a little bit of context, in the spring of 2020, the dairy industry faced a significant downturn in milk prices due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and dairy cooperatives made a formal request for a minimum milk price to the USDA, but the request was rejected. And since then, farmers and cooperatives have continued to advocate for a minimum pricing policy. And in this study, researchers found that the pricing change would expand the dairy sector with limited impact on production from rising livestock feed costs. They also found that net revenue changes will vary across regions, with the highest increases in regions with large dairy sectors. And finally, water quality impacts would include an increase in nitrogen emissions and a decrease in phosphorus emissions. All right, so that is all for today's dairy roundup developments.